Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. We're so glad you stayed with us. We, as promised, are going to dive into the what next. So, Freeman, what next?
So, I'm imagining, I'm imaging more connection, more grace, more fun. Those are qualities that I want to promote, and I'm imagining, envisioning, just more expansion, a bigger field of possibility. Because before the break, we were talking about how easy it is to rush to worst case scenario as a way of self-protection, right? Not helpful, but typical. And the work, I think for me, at least one of the pieces of work, is pushing the boundary of possibility and not rushing back to being practical and, what are the 5 steps I can take and that kind of thing. So really extending beyond my comfort zone. Again, noting that where you were saying your capacity tops out is when it gets, intense in a positive way. Mm-hmm. There's a part of you, and I can say this for myself, that can't handle that.
Mm-hmm. There was a celebrity murder case in Los Angeles a number of years ago, and some of our listeners may remember the Menendez brothers.
Oh, yeah.
So the Menendez brothers, that family, they murdered their parents, and a dark chapter. That family lived in a mansion just off Sunset Boulevard in Bel Air in Los Angeles. And I remember having a conversation once in the car on Sunset with some people that were talking about energy. They were talking to us about energy, and they said, well, we're right here. Let me give you, if you have any doubt about the reality of energy and how palpable certain energy states are, we just happen to be right here. Let me just turn up here for a second.
Oh, interesting.
They turned up this thing, and I didn't know where she was driving us, but she drove us right in front of what I later discovered was the Menendez mansion. And she said, well, how do you feel here? And I said, well, this place is... this is not a fun... This doesn't feel good here.
Yeah.
So, I'm not here to debate whether or not vibration and energy states are real and palpable. I live my life out of the assumption that they are, and
well, out of the experience that they are.
Well, yes, that's
what
thank
you
you.
just
I
said.
live my life out of a first-hand experience that they are.
Yeah.
And that brings me to one of my edges when we're talking about the unknown. So I am very interested in claiming how much I matter. And what I mean by that is we have this language about what really matters in life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, all of those things, my family, my marriage, all of these things, my friends, they all matter. That's absolutely true. And I matter just because I exist. And I put out a particular frequency that is a culminating soup. It's almost a quantum soup that is the result of the years of focused intentions in particular areas of love and growth, and it also is spiced with some of my own reprehensible patterns and some of my own control and some of my own manipulation, and it's all like a stew, and it adds up to a particular signature vibration that is mine, and by virtue of my presence, that is a note that I bring to the symphony. By virtue of my presence at any moment or in any situation, I matter. And so that is an edge that I am exploring, an edge that I'm committed to discovering, and an edge that I am committed to devoting more and more attention to in this coming year by way of resolution. It's a mystery to me, and I want to explore more of who I am in ways that with which I am not terribly familiar.
It's so interesting because the two sides of this mattering, on this side that we're talking about, this expansive side of how much can I matter? What's the impact I can actually have on the world around me? And that's sort of on one hand. And then on the other hand is this sense, this sort of fractured part of me that wants to matter, not the most empowered. This is the part that is sort of screaming for attention and wants to win and wants to, we hear it reflected back, in terms of wanting to make a mark. But it's wanting to make a mark so that I get to matter in the context, in a very small context, in the context of only certain people matter and other people don't, right? From the vantage point you're coming from, it is very expansive. Each one of us matters in a very broad sense, that every choice, every ripple in our life has impact, a tremendous impact,
Well, it has more impact than our acts, and it has more impact than our words, and it has more impact in the end than our deeds.
Well,
so we are radio guys, so it's pretty important that we speak. The paradox there is that we matter more. We have greater impact simply by our presence in the world, whether or not we're anywhere near a microphone. It's this infatuation we have with logic and reason that likes to string together events and says, well, we matter only because we have this kind of impact, or we do a good job at our work. And all of that is true. I'm not diminishing any of that.
Right.
But what we're really bringing to the table is an essential experience of who we are, the God stuff.
Right. And
that speaks louder than what you say. That is not a doing conversation.
No, that's
nor
right.
is it only a being conversation. It is both.
Right. And what gets in the way of that is, again, this small mattering manipulation, where I'm manipulating my mattering.
Where I'm levering it.
Well,
I'm using it like as a lever to...
Yeah, so we've talked in terms of...
That's control you're talking about.
Right. And it's also, well, it's not just control, it's also it's framed within a belief structure. Mm-hmm. That I only matter if I make a lot of money. I only matter if I'm a celebrity. I only matter if I have huge impact and I, develop the cure for polio, or that's already been done, but something that we haven't done yet.
This is great, because this is exactly to the point. So we exist inside of stories.
Yeah.
And our world is made up of stories, not atoms, contrary to what I've believed my whole life. We exist inside of stories, and what happens when we sidle up to something that we don't have stories large enough to contain?
That's it.
What we do is we either find a way to shoehorn it into an existing story, we make it small, or we say it doesn't exist. So here we're now talking about, well, how can I become intimate with something for which I don't have a story? That I matter simply because I am a string plucked on the soundstage of a concert hall, and what I bring to that, I cannot connect in the mental state. My brain is not designed to play that game. So we're beginning to step beyond the boundaries of how we've held ourselves and how we have told ourselves life is played, and how we have impact upon each other. We matter because we have a certain kind of um, um, rocks are hard and water is wet, impact. We rub up against each other. So this is a different kind of
and there's
an
an
exploration.
element of risk in this exploration. So I want to make this very practical.
Mm-hmm.
You and I were recently on a very mainstream radio show in Los Angeles on one of the
big flagship LA station.
a big talk show station. And one of the things that is in the way that we work that, let's say, doesn't fly is that we have these conversations without conclusions. In other words, we purposefully kind of set ourselves up to wander into something, not knowing where we're going. And we suggested this to that producer who was producing the show. And she was very clear that, no, you can't do that. We have to have...
You need a finish line, guys.
Not
You need
just
a
that.
checkered flag.
Yeah, we want benchmarks along the way. We want the 4 things that you're presenting, and everything
Yeah.
has to be really tucked in. And you and I both, we played along for better or worse. And we both agreed sort of afterwards that, okay, we may or may not be as mainstream as some part of us might want us to be, but we'll stick with conversations without conclusions because there's really so much more in that for you and I, and so much more in. And it's not to say that we don't have kind of conclusions we've drawn. That's fine, but that we're not elevating those conclusions to where everything has to fit and be organized into those little boxes, that there's an openness.
Well, when I was a little boy living in north of Montreal in Quebec, and it was incredibly snowy those winters, snowy. There would be footage of snow, and my mom would go out and she would shovel a little area of snow so I could go out and I could play in the snow. And then she'd shovel a little more area, and I would have a bigger area to play. And then she'd shovel a little more area, and I'd have a little bit more to play. So we kind of do our lives, and we certainly do our radio work, as though we are out shoveling a little play area for ourselves. There is no, we're going to shovel right to that finish line, and then your play is going to be confined to that.
Yeah. So I love it. Can I, because here's the invitation. We started off this segment really talking about extending beyond the boundaries that are set and really sort of working consciously not to fall into the pattern of the sort of worst case scenario and let's play it safe. Purposefully going into situations, not drawing conclusions, allowing there to be uncertainty and ambiguity and complexity and all these things that aren't very comfortable to a part of me, right?
But they are the big. They are the
biggering.
They are the biggering.
They are the biggering.
That is entirely beyond what is logical.
Yeah.
So we are now looking beyond logic. We're not saying broom logic, but we are holding this paradox of being able to look beyond logic without cutting loose of logic.
Right.
The both and. Looking into what is where we're what might come, being aware of what might come without cutting ourselves free of where we've been.
That's right.
But we're not focused on where we've been. That I should say, in best practices,
Right.
in the most empowered moments, we're not focused
That's right.
on where we've been.
That's right.
The tendency, the habit, the comfort zone is to keep bringing the past with us moment to moment. And that is not a recipe for shoveling a bigger playground.
Right. The focus forward, but focus forward not in the sense of, aiming so precisely or.
Well, if you're aiming totally precisely, you are bringing something from your past, and you are
That's exactly
you're
it.
sprucing it up. You got a new coat of paint on it. Now we do live in a world of our own imagination, and one that we co-create with others. And so, yes, we are going to be co-creating. We are going to have visions for ourselves and for our world, and they are going to be constructed of experience that we project out into the future. But what we are really doing when it is operating at its most powerful is we are using those visions of a world that is cooperative and bountiful and plentiful, where people respect each other, however you hold that, or whatever, or I get a job, I get the car, I get the girl, however we hold that. We have these visions, and they are placeholders for, back to the frequency, they are placeholders for vibrational experience. Those vibrational experiences themselves have a particular felt state quality.
Yep.
And that is really the alchemy. Those are really the ingredients, the secret sauce that we're working with. We can lose the form, it's just a placeholder. So we hold the form lightly, and we know what we're really bringing in is the secret sauce, the function that leads to the form.
And we need to take a quick break, but what you pointed out, what you said, I'm going to contradict just slightly, but I know we agree on this, is we have our own imagination. And that is the tripcord, because so often we don't have our own imagination. In other words, our imagination is a hand-me-down sequence of thoughts, beliefs, understandings about who we are, what's possible, and how the world works that aren't necessarily our own. So part of the challenge is, to get out our shovel and clear away some of these very limited perceptions of what's possible and extend into something yet unknown. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more right here from the Edge of Possibility. Stay with us.